Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video from Northeast Christian Apologetics. Today we're doing a video in which we're going to be exploring a question that deals with an aspect of Christianity. And that question today is going to be, is death an appropriate punishment for sin? In today's society, the word sin has become taboo. It's almost as offensive, or is as offensive to some, as racism itself. The word sin smacks of bigotry and close-mindedness. So to a lot of modern thinkers, it makes sense that this word would belong to a group of religious Christian bigots. After all, who could sentence somebody to death for eating a piece of fruit? On top of that, who would require the death of an innocent person in order to forgive sin? And what I'm going to do today in this video is show that there are actually good reasons for why that is the case. But first we need to explore the idea of what is sin. So in order to understand what sin is, we're going to dive into the Old Testament Hebrew and also the New Testament Greek. Take a look at those words individually, just briefly, and then we'll move on from there. And you're going to have to forgive me for this pronunciation. In the Old Testament Hebrew, the word for sin was chata. And the New Testament Greek for the word sin was hamartia. And you're supposed to roll that R, but I just can't seem to do it. Hamartia. Hamartia. Both of those words roughly mean to miss the mark. They mean to miss the mark or to wander away from a path or to depart from a particular way. The idea of the words are to give you a sense of stumbling in the path of upright moral behavior or thinking. What is particularly important to note is that the Bible, of course, teaches that you can sin against God, but it also teaches that you can sin against your fellow man, that it's possible to sin against humans. And as a matter of fact, it's a really common theme throughout the Bible. Some people are surprised to hear that, but sin is not limited to actions against God. The very first time we see the word sin, it's in Genesis chapter 4. This was right after Abel had won favor from God by his sacrifice, and Cain was very jealous of this favor that he had won. In Genesis chapter 4, God comes to Cain and he says to him, "If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." But we all know what Cain did to Abel. The sin that God was talking about there manifested itself in murderous intentions within Cain. And those murderous intentions eventually found their way outside into the physical world, and Cain killed Abel. We also see this concept of sin being actions that miss the mark against our fellow man or against God in the Ten Commandments. The first 4 commandments talk about how to relate properly with God. And then the remainder of the commandments, the last 6, deal with how to relate properly with your fellow man. Those many, many laws that the Israelites had to follow in the Old Testament are summarized by the 10 commandments. And the 10 commandments can be even further reduced into 2 laws. The first one being, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And the second one is, do not seek revenge or bear grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. And of course, Jesus brings them both together succinctly in Luke chapter 10, verse 27. When he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your mind, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. So if all the commandments of the Old Testament and the commandments in the New Testament can be summed up with regard to like loving God and loving others, then what does it mean to miss the mark? If sin is to miss the mark, and the mark is to love, then missing the mark is just failing to love. And of course we need to understand, what kind of love is this? And the answer to that is pretty obvious. The type of love that we're talking about here is the type of love that God expresses. Many consider love to be God's defining attribute, the very definition of God. In general, God's love can be understood as his eternal giving or sharing of himself. Paul does a great job of defining this type of love in 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind, it is not envious, love does not brag, it is not puffed up, it is not rude, it is not self-serving, it is not easily angered or resentful, it is not glad about injustice, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. When you fail to love, what happens is that you damage your relationship with God or this other person. It causes a separation or a division between you, with a complete separation being the ultimate consequence of sin. And as the Net Bible points out, death is essentially separation. To die physically means separation from the land of the living, but not extinction. To die spiritually means to be separated from God. Both occur with sin, although the physical alienation is more gradual than instant, and the spiritual is immediate, although the effects of it continue the separation. Therefore, when God told Adam, "You must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat of it you will surely die," he was warning Adam of the consequences of disobeying God. When you disobey God, you are failing to love him. And why is that? A part of truly loving someone is respecting them when they set boundaries. When someone establishes a boundary, it is an act of love to respect that boundary, especially when that person who has established a boundary has exhibited only good intentions and to have a lot of wisdom. To doubt that God has good intentions, or to believe that God is withholding some good thing without any good reasons, is to fail to love him. And through that disobedience, they damaged their relationship with God. That damaged relationship is a manifestation of the separation caused by their disobedience. That action is what brought sin and death into God's perfect world. So when we see Jesus rebuking the Sadducees in the New Testament, when he says that God is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living, he's making a declaration about the status of their relationship to God. But we all die as a response to sin. So what can we do in order to restore this relationship with God? Is there anything that we can do at all? Maybe we have to rely on someone who's a little bit more powerful. So maybe the correct question is, what can God do to restore this relationship with humanity? And that's the question I'm going to be exploring in a later video. So just to tie everything up in this video, what I'm saying is that the question with regard to is death an appropriate punishment for sin? It's not only inappropriate, but it's the only punishment available. There is no other punishment. Death is separation. If sin causes separation, and separation is what death is, then death is just the natural consequence of sin. There's no getting around it. Not even God can get around it. So when God said that to Adam in the garden, it wasn't just a declaration of a punishment. It was a declaration of natural consequences. But anyway, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Please visit us at www.nechristianapologetics.com. If you're on YouTube, please think about subscribing and hit that notification bell. Give us a thumbs up. Really appreciate it. And we'll get back to this topic another time. Thank you and God bless.